Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Harmony Nice and today I'm going to be doing another unsolved mystery video. So this video is extremely different from any of the other cases that I have done, but saying that is the most interesting case I've ever looked into, hands down. It's absolutely incredible. I'm really excited to tell you guys about it today. So what is interesting about this case is that the mystery is not only within who murdered this person, but who the victim actually was to begin with. And it's just one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard about, like a dead body being found ever, so I had to tell you guys about it today. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. On April the 18th, 1943, four young boys of the names Thomas Willets, Robert Hart, Bob Farmer and Fred Payne were out in Hagley Wood in Stourbridge in the United Kingdom near Wychbury Hill. So the four boys were actually trespassing on this land because they were illegally hunting basically on the land and searching for rabbits and birds' nests and things like that. This area was very well known for sinister, kind of creepy legends around it anyway. It was owned by a very important man I think a lot of people were kind of scared of anyway, so the land kind of had this stigma around it to start off with. So on that day, the boys were apparently extremely nervous because they were obviously trespassing on this land firstly, and secondly, it was just a creepy woods. It was a very eerie, kind of creepy vibe to the woods. Already kind of sneaking around, the boys from afar spotted an old wych elm tree. And as the boys got closer, they realised it was a hollow wych elm tree, which would be the perfect place to look for birds' nest in. So the four boys approached this hollow wych elm tree and they got one of the boys, 15-year-old Bob Farmer, to climb the tree in order to look for birds' nests. So Bob Farmer climbed the tree and he took a stick that he had found earlier and was poking around the inner side of the tree to try to look for any birds' nests and things like that. And as he was doing that, he found a skull. And at first, Bob Farmer thought it was an animal skull, so he removed the skull from the tree in order to show his friends, and upon removing the skull, that the skull had a little bit of rotting flesh on the head that had some brown hair attached to it, and also crooked teeth in the front of the mouth, and then soon realised that it was not an animal skull, but a human skull. The boys were instantly taken back and utterly horrified, and all of them left the scene extremely quickly to return home. And upon doing this, they all decided to make a pact to not tell their parents about what they had found today, because their parents didn't know they were trespassing on this land. And also they were probably, because of how young they were and the times that this was happening, they were probably more concerned about what their parents would have thought about them trespassing and finding this more than they actually realised the dangers of not telling someone about finding a dead body. But upon returning home, the youngest of the boys, Thomas Willets, just didn't feel right about not telling his parents. He said he kind of thought that there was just something wrong with keeping this secret. He just didn't feel right about it, so he decided to inform his parents on what the four boys had found, because whatever he had seen that day upon finding the skull really heavily affected Thomas Willets, and he ended up having tons of night tremors and couldn't sleep at all for like weeks and weeks after discovering this skull. So Thomas's parents notified the local police that went out to check the scene. So the police officers went to Hagley Wood and searched the inside of this wych elm tree, and upon doing so, they found the skull that the boys had discovered. And not only that, they found a whole entire skeleton, except the right hand. The skeleton was fully clothed in deteriorating clothing, which included a dark blue striped knitted cardigan with a belt around it, which was light blue as well. And this person was also wearing a cloth skirt with a underskirt on it, which was made of taffeta, a gold wedding ring and crepe-soled shoes. Inside the mouth of the skeleton was a piece of material in order to have gagged the victim, which it was determined that it was made of taffeta too, so it could have been a piece of the under petticoat that she was wearing. Upon further inspection, all of the tags from all of her clothing had been cut out. There was no tags to be seen. The right hand that was missing was actually found around half a mile to a mile away from the scene, completely gnawed down by animals. The body was sent out for DNA evidence conducted by a man called Professor James Webster, head of the Home Office Forensics Science Laboratory in the West Midlands. And it was determined that the body was buried around 18 months before it was discovered. The body was also determined to be female, around 35 years old. She had light brown hair and she was only 5 foot tall. It was also determined that the woman had given birth at some point in the past, and there was also something wrong with her teeth, as in they looked like they had been messed up somehow, or she had been born with irregular teeth growth. It was also concluded that she was murdered by suffocation or having cloth stuffed down her throat. It was also believed that she was placed in a tree very, very soon after her death. And in the coming weeks, nobody came forward of knowing this lady, nobody had any other information. It was kind of just like a massive mystery of who this person was because nobody claimed to know them. We also looked into dentists around the area because she had irregular teeth, and apparently they looked like it had some dental work done recently on them. So they were looking around surrounding area dentists and they couldn't find anybody that had this person at the dentist. The person that kind of came forward pretty quickly that had any evidence that was relevant to the case was an anonymous man that was an industrial worker in the area. The man claimed in 1941, around 20 months before the body was discovered, he'd been walking through Hagley Wood, and he said from a distance he heard a bellowing scream coming from the woods near him. The man was startled, but he wasn't sure whether he had misheard something or whether it was just something very, very far away or whether he should approach it or whatever. So he soon passed on, and upon passing someone else, he asked the person whether they had heard this as well, and they realised that this other person had also heard the screams too. I guess this guy didn't really give much evidence because he didn't really know anything else, and it's kind of a given that the person was probably murdered. Not really a lot of more information that came forward about this case. The mystery around it stopped appealing to people. So they couldn't really find anything else, as technology for DNA evidence and things like that wasn't the best in the 1940s. So the kind of chances of finding out what had happened to this woman, other than the fact she'd been murdered, was very, very minimal at this point. There wasn't really any way they could find out who this woman was until 1944. So at the start of 1944, a series of graffiti appeared around the surrounding area. It started off as one mysterious piece of graffiti at West Midlands town Old Hill, which read, "Who put Lubella down the witch elm?" written in broken chalk. Then after that, more and more graffiti began to appear around the town. Nobody knew who was doing this graffiti. But around the surrounding areas, one in Upper Dean Street in Birmingham, which read, "Who put Bella down the witch elm?" with a little dash, and then it said Hagley Wood. And then there was a lot more of this graffiti around the area, stating the same thing. But the weird thing about these graffitis was the inconsistency with the word witch. Some people would spell it as W-Y-C-H, and somebody would spell it as in W-I-T-C-H, as in like me, witch, sort of thing. A lot of this graffiti began to appear in the surrounding areas at this time. Then again in the 1970s. Then in the 1970s, there was more graffiti that appeared on Hagley Obelisk near where the woman's body was found, which was a slightly modified version of the first lot of graffiti that was found, and it read, "Who put Bella in the witch elm?" And there was also a piece of cardboard placed in Hagley Wood, which again read, "Who put Bella in the witch elm?" Obviously the kind of more later ones, it was probably just someone who was interested in the case and was seeking answers. But at the time, it was super odd. Nobody really knew where it came from, nobody knew who it was written, but it was determined that whoever had written it knew who the victim was. And for some reason couldn't come forward to the police, so they decided to give the police clues using this method. So the police began to speculate, and they then used this name as determining what her name was and decided to refer to her as Lubella or Bella, and which helped them take them other places within the case to determine and discover who this woman was. So that is all the information on the case. Now let's get into the theories about who Bella was and why she was murdered. The first theory, and this is just gonna escalate so quickly, is that this Bella was involved in a Nazi spy ring. Since this was just after the Second World War had ended, it was a huge theory that this person could have been a victim of the war and the body had something to do with it. So in 1953, a whole 11 years after this mysterious Bella body had been found, a journalist of the name Wilfred Byford Jones received a letter from an anonymous lady who named herself Anna of Clavery to be more specific, claiming that Bella had died by getting involved in a World War II Nazi spy ring. Wilfred was extremely interested in the theory, so he tried to get hold of this Anna from Clavery to find out more about the story, and the lady agreed to tell him more about the story. So this person came forward and admitted that her name was not Anna, that her name was Uma Mussup, and she decided to tell Wilfred what she knew. So the theory goes that Una's husband Jack was apparently working for a local factory in the area for a while for some money, as the war was extremely hard for people at the time. But Jack came clean to Uma after a while of working at this job. He said that he'd been working for a Nazi spy agent and delivering information to someone else that worked for this ring to another agent that was working or posing as a cabaret singer at the local theatre to pass on information about local industrial sites. Jack decided to meet this person that he had been passing information on, and he decided to meet him at a local pub that was located near Hagleywood. Upon his arriving to this pub, he found the man or his associate arguing with a Dutch woman at the bar, and this other agent ordered that Jack drove them to Client Hills. So Jack decided to, because he was concerned about these people arguing. So within the car, the two people that were arguing, this Dutch woman and his spy agent associate, began to get violent within their argument, and it escalated super quickly. And Jack's associate, the other agent within the car, began to strangle this woman, and he killed this woman in the car with him. He then threatened Jack to help him hide the body, and apparently because Jack feared for his own life, he helped him carry the body to a nearby woods and place the body in the tree. Apparently Uma's husband Jack was absolutely traumatized over what had happened and what he had done. He began to have a nervous breakdown and was institutionalized in 1941 and then died, unfortunately. It was debated that a Nazi spy agent under the name Lehrer was operating in the Midlands area at the time, and apparently he had a Dutch girlfriend there living in Birmingham at the time and was called Clarabella Dronkers. And it was extra weird as there was a Nazi spy captured in 1942 and was executed that year on New Year's Eve, and he went by the name of Johannes Marinus Dronkers. And it was debated that because he had the same second name as this Nazi spy agent's girlfriend, that them three were involved in a love triangle where Clarabella was married to this Johannes, the one that was executed, and then had an affair with this other Nazi spy agent that had been captured, Lehrer, and one of the men could have found out and murdered Bella. Because that kind of makes sense why they could have been arguing, etc. Also, it makes kind of sense with the name with Bella, I guess. But there's a couple of things that don't really make a lot of sense about this theory. Firstly, if this person didn't know the area well, and if the man was there to be an agent and to be a spy and he wasn't a local, why would he have known that there was a hollow elm tree in the middle of this forest? I mean, I guess obviously if you spend some time there and stuff, it makes a little bit of sense. But the fact that he knew exactly where to put her. And also secondly, Uma's story also didn't really fit the time frame perfectly. She would have placed the body being buried early in 1941, whereas that doesn't really fit the time frame of when the body was found, and also how long the body had been deteriorating. It doesn't fit that time frame either. But again, technology wasn't the best, so they may have determined how long the body had been there wrong, or they may have got the time frames completely wrong. But with both of these theories, they could be possible to be debunked, but both of these things that could be wrong with the case could be debunked, as Jack could have suggested this tree if he knew the area well to bury the body in, And again, like I said, timeframes could have been mixed up somewhere. There's actually also not a lot of evidence after this that this spy ring even existed, as most spy rings were discovered and things like that, whereas there's nothing to say that it even did, apparently. The next theory is that this mysterious Bella was a cabaret singer and German actress. This theory, again, still involves the spy ring theory, but it kind of sheds more light on who Bella could have actually been. There was a Gestapo agent named Joseph Jacobs who was captured while he was parachuting into Cambridge in 1941. He was the last man to be executed in the Tower of London. During Joseph's interrogation, there was a picture found on him, which was a young German movie star and cabaret singer, found out to be named Clara Bruel. Joseph released during this interrogation that this woman, the picture that they found in his pocket, was also working as a Gestapo agent, but had been living in Birmingham for years before that and had developed a good Birmingham accent, so was kind of the perfect decoy for a spy. Upon further investigation on this Clara, there was no determination on where Clara was. There was no evidence that she was in Birmingham. Joseph said that she had returned to Germany and was planning to parachute in with him into Cambridge, but there was no kind of evidence to whether she was found and if she had made it. And also, if she was Bella, she did actually suit the characteristics perfectly of Bella's remains. And the theory is that thinking that maybe she had been captured by some people at the time, murdered, and then placed in the tree. And people had said that maybe she had her hand cut off as a sign of like victory. Again, there was not a lot of evidence for this, and also there was debates whether the hand was just taken because like a fox got it or like an animal got it and took it away. And the last theory of this mysterious found body under the name of Bella is that she was a victim of a murder ritual. Now, usually I don't really include this theory just because I think it's so easy to blame it on the witch. Do you know what I mean? Like, even in my ripe little young age, I have been accused of things purely because I practice witchcraft. Do you know what I'm saying? And I hate to jump to conclusions because everyone's like, the witches did it, but it's quite an interesting theory, so hear me out. In this theory, there is debates that she could have been a victim of the darker witchcraft world. There is this occult ceremony called the Hand of Glory, and basically what it entails is that someone that has done wrong, or someone they need to someone being sacrificed or something like that, the hand would be removed from the body and then used for things like making a candle using the fat for the corpse for different occult rituals, or drying or pickling the hand in a jar and then using it for charms and rituals as luck for finding lost treasure and things like putting sleeping spells on people and things like that. And as some of you guys may know or may not know, it was a common thing to do when people were accused of being witches to bury them within a tree to ensure that they cannot rise from the dead or their dead corpse affect the land around where they are buried or cause harm to anything else as they come back alive. And it was debated that she could have been a Romani traveller that had practiced darker magic within their group, and for some reason she had either annoyed someone within her group and been sacrificed or had been killed by one of her own, and that is what happened to her. She was a victim of that. The things that kind of hint towards this theory, and the only things really, is the fact that nobody came forward about who she knew who she was, because Romani travellers seem to be quite, like to be quite private about their lives, and the fact there could be so little evidence about her. And there also could have been an evidence for the graffiti riddles that were left everywhere. Either, some witches like to use riddles as a way of kind of discovering things and as a magical practice, but also, there could have been someone in the group that disagreed with this and wanted to have this mystery solved and have justice brought to her, but couldn't go against the group in order to do so. And also within the riddle word theory is that either people knew that she was a witch or that she was involved in a victim of witchcraft, because in some of the writing, that the graffiti that had been written all over the surrounding areas, the spelling of witch again was spelt as like an actual witch, like W-I-T-C-H, not as in witch meaning witch elm the tree, which had the debate that she may have been involved in something dark, which is a bit more far-fetched, but I think it's an interesting theory, which is pretty dark, so please don't think bad of witchcraft because of this theory about something, because it's just a theory, like there's nothing, like we don't promote that. So to conclude this theory, there's also one more bit of evidence about this case that is so weird. It makes me debate that this dead body was a victim of something to do with war, or something maybe they wanted to hide to do with the war, even in this country. So shortly after the investigation was closed in 2009, which is crazy how long they kept that investigation open, but good, I guess. It was found that Bella's remains had vanished, completely gone, nowhere to be seen, no evidence of a trace of where her remains had gone. And also no evidence that the remains had been destroyed. It was later found that a man called Dr. Webster had passed on the remains to be examined at Birmingham University Medical School, and upon transporting these remains, or the remains getting there, or somewhere in between giving these remains to the university, they disappeared. They like completely disappeared, and it was believed that somebody took it for a reason, so there could be no more examination on these bones, and nothing more could have been found, which makes me just think something a little bigger to this case than a murder, a bit more of a cover-up. And also the autopsy report had also been taken and is nowhere to be found. So there's no more evidence on the whereabouts of the body or the autopsy reports, which means that this case may just remain unsolved from now till forever. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that Unsolved Mystery video. I literally think it's one of the most interesting cases I've ever done. I don't know whether you guys are just like, what are you on about, Harmony? It's not that interesting, but I loved researching this one so much. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys. Unsolved Mystery.